I know.
So ridiculous. All right. Oh my goodness.
Nothing?
Good enough. Make do with what we have. Don't mess with things that you don't know about. Okay? Rule number one. Okay. All right, how everybody doing today? Good? Good weekend? Yeah? Bailed out in time? No jail? No? Okay, good, no jail. All right, so week 7, we got one more week left, all right? Guys did really good on the case study, real good work, proud of you guys. Um, so the only thing left now is the final exam, right? I didn't realize you guys have no paper in here. So no paper to write, right? Yeah, it's unusual. Cause usually it's a paper, but the grad.
Oh, really?
Masters in doctor, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, paper, but there's no paper for you guys. But they also don't have a final exam, so.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so we don't have to do the paper.
Right, you guys don't have to do paper. So no paper. I'm not gonna do that either. Alright, okay. So to finish up, a couple of things. If you got any work that you need to get it in, alright? The only thing I can't let you do is a quiz. Everything else I can let you submit late if you want, or that kind of thing, okay? Some points is better than no points. Alright, alright, so next thing we're gonna cover really, are just kind of how to measure performance and the progress, and then we're gonna talk about closing out, alright, we call sunsetting sometimes, okay? And so, the way you're really gonna know, how the project is going or how well you've done is to, measure and to kind of evaluate the progress, okay? But in order to do that, you kind of have to have a couple of things in place first, right? First thing, you always need a reference or a baseline to start with, right? And when we're talking about baseline, references, we really talking about the average or the kind of our starting point, right? If I want to try to lose weight, you know, my reference or my starting point is my beginning weight, right? I'm at 190. So then from there, anything below or above that, I can tell how I'm doing, right? If I'm above that, then I may not be doing so well. If I'm below that, then I'm kind of progressing towards where I want to get to. But just because I'm above the weight that I want to be doesn't necessarily mean I'm not losing fat or getting to where I want to be. So there's different factors that play a role in, whether or not, the weight goes up or down. And you have to evaluate those factors even more so to evaluate whether or not it's an effective project, right? How well we doing? Because if as you're putting weight on, trying to lose weight in the gym, you know, as you're losing fat, you also tend to build muscle. And so the muscle weighs heavier than the fat. And so as you tend to build muscle, it looks like you're going up in weight, but you're really not. You are, but you're going up in good weight, right? Because you're losing the fat, but the muscle's heavier, so it's accounting for more of the weight. But you understand the variance, right? You understand the difference as to why, you're losing weight and why is the weight going up? Well, it's not because I'm eating, bad stuff and I'm getting more weight. It's just that I'm losing fat and I'm getting more muscle. Because the muscle weighs more, then I can account for that variance, that difference in the, to why the weight is doing what it's doing, right? So, all right, as a PM, you're gonna be monitoring a lot of things, all right? And the best, most efficient way to really monitor progress and evaluate your project is to basically do it off analytics, right? Is to collect data, analyze the data, right? Kind of synthesize or try to understand what the results are telling you. Then once you get the results, you kind of take actions from there, right? Decide, okay, what's the best course of action from based on the results that I received or that I see and where I want to be, right? What my end state is, okay? And so, most project managers rely heavily on data analytics, tracking of the budget, tracking of the budget as compared to the percentage of completion as far as the project goes, right? If I'm 75% done with the project, but I'm 100% out of money, then we got a problem, right? We want to be closer to, even. If I'm 80% done with the project, then 80% of the money should be gone, right? Or 75%, maybe even 85% if we went over budget at the moment, right? But those are some of the ways that we use to evaluate whether or not the project has been successful, right? And so when we're collecting the data, there's some questions you gotta ask, right? So most of the time, you're not gonna be, well versed in statistics. You're gonna use basic metrics to really evaluate whether or not you're doing well, right? So the first step is always collecting the data, right? Where's the data coming from? What's the source? And most times the source is, excuse me, the source is your team members, all right? They provide you a report every week as to what they're doing or what they've completed based on the task that they had. And then you kind of have to put all those things together in more comprehensive way to figure out, okay, are we on track? Um, Fortunately, some parts of the project rely on other parts of the project. So it's really not any getting around, one part being done, another part not being done because you can't move on, based on your work schedule. Can't move on from one thing to the next thing without it being complete. And so that kind of helps kind of build some dependencies and really gives you an opportunity to be able to project out a little bit better as far as, okay, completion date, and then what you anticipate as far as cost for an upcoming evolution or upcoming activity. Right? You could just be like, hey, we're getting into the building of the engine or something, like you're building a car, right? You put the engine in and put in all the internal parts. That means, or that tells me that the chassis is done, the paint's on, that kind of thing, right? And so those parts are done, but how much money have we spent based on those things, right? We have to collect the data and figure out, okay, where exactly, you know, are you on your timeline, right? As an individual person that's contributing to the project, right? What's the current status of the project in terms of schedule and cost, right? How much will it cost to complete the project, right? When will the project be completed, right? A bunch of questions, right? But they all have to do with time and money, okay? How much more time we have and the amount of time or the amount of activities we have left, is the money still adequate in order to fulfill these requirements, right? And it should be relatively close, if not on budget, but you may have some budget overruns, which is fine. All right, we're expecting that, but that's why we put in the 10%, 15% buffer. So we should have money. We'll just have to dip into the, the buffer zone that we created in order to complete the project, right? And so when it comes down to, after action or when we're done with the project, we'll have to annotate that, like, okay, we budgeted this much. We had, a 10, 15% buffer. We had to go into the buffer 5%. So that means next time we do the project, we may need to up the budget, right? Because there were things that we didn't really foresee or forecast properly. And we caused us to have to go into the kind of the auxiliary funds that we set aside, the rainy day funds we set aside. And although we didn't have to go deep into it, we did go into it, right? And that's more of an internal thing for the project manager to kind of figure out, okay, how do they want to annotate that, right? Maybe they just say, you know what, internally, I know how much I went over. I'm just gonna recommend that the budget be, 1.5 million next time for this project, vice just 1 million, right? And they don't have to necessarily say anything else because the budget itself, that we requested is the first, that one budget we got, and we never went back to ask for any more money. So in the eyes of management, they already have an amount of money that's already out the door, all right? You as a PM, you're managing the money a little differently, all right? For the leadership, it's 1.5 million, they already set out. For you, your goal was 1 million, all right? The fact that you spent 1.1 or 1.2 million, you still have, $300,000 left. That's a positive for you, right? And you can also go back now and say, look, I didn't use all the money, okay? Which can be a good and bad thing, depending on what the project is about. If it's a recurring project, if it's something that's on the budget, the fiscal annual budget, we may not want to have any extra money. We may want to exhaust all the money, and then in addition, maybe ask for more money, okay? So there's a lot of different things that go into it, but in general, if it's just a one-time project, we want to make sure that we are understanding the cost expenditures along with the timeline and make sure those two things align. And our goal is always to try to save as much money as we can. Okay. All right. So when you're collecting data analysis, right, and doing analysis, collecting data is probably one of the most important, if not the most important aspect of any analysis that you're going to do, right? Where you collecting the data and how you collect the data is extremely important, okay? If you don't collect the data properly, you're gonna get the wrong answer. You're gonna get the wrong results, okay? So for instance, all right, guys, I'm sure you guys remember this, right? When Donald Trump was running for president the first time against Hillary Clinton, okay? All the polls said Hillary Clinton was gonna win by a landslide. She was gonna beat the brakes off of Donald Trump, and it was gonna be terrible. It was gonna be a massacre. It wasn't even close, and she was just running away with it, right? And then what happened? Donald Trump ended up being the president, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you guys think happened? Well, yeah, what do you think is the main thing that happened?
He used more money.
Okay, okay. Let's think from a data analytics standpoint.
Um. Maybe they worry. collected like actually general data. It was
Uh-huh.
just based on like uh I don't really know what happened, but just based on what you were teaching, I just think they didn't look at it on like the broader side. They just looked at, let me say, the states where she had more votes. They're looking at,
Okay,
I don't know.
you're on the right
I
track.
just
No,
yeah, I
you're on the
just
right
think
track. You're on the right track, right?
yeah,
So,
the general analysis of
yeah,
everything.
yeah, now you're on the right track. So think about it this way, right? Think about if I was to say, I really want to, know whether or not people like you, okay? And I say, you know what? I'm gonna go talk to people out here. I'm gonna talk to your classmates, okay? I'm gonna talk to your grandma, I'm gonna talk to your mom, talk to your dad, your brother, your sister, your boyfriend, your husband, all right? What do you think the answer is gonna be? What do you think people gonna think of you?
They like me.
They like you, all right?
And good to people like close to me.
Right,
Yeah.
people that like you, right?
Yeah.
People that like you, that know you, right? They're gonna say, yeah, we love her, right? But what about the people that are outside that don't know you? What do you think they're gonna say?
I don't like her. I don't know her.
They gonna say, I don't know her,
Yeah.
right? They gonna say, I don't know her. But based on what I've heard, or based on the facts, or based on the things that she's done, this is what I have as far as opinion of her, right? And so this is kind of what happened. They went to areas in which Hillary Clinton was popular, but they didn't go to areas where she wasn't popular, right? They went to areas where Donald Trump wasn't popular,
Yeah.
but didn't go to areas where he was popular. Okay, so totally threw the numbers off because the way they collected the data was inappropriate. Right, whenever you collect data for research, anyway, you want it to be as random as possible. Okay, just randomly select people unless you have a particular. The way you collect data is based on what your goal is for the research. Okay, and so if I'm just trying to randomly get an idea of what people think, all right, then I need to be as random as possible, right? So when you see the polls on TV, right, and you guys been watching the polls as far as the presidential poll, like who's leading, who they say think they going is gonna win the election, and all that kind of thing, who's leading? No,
Right now.
okay. So they were basically locked even. Donald Trump is ahead now in 7 or 8 of the leading indicator states, okay? Uh, which is Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all these swing states, all these states that, battleground states, right? But he's only ahead by 0.003%, okay? Which for statisticians and for data analysts and people that are doing math, that is nothing. That's negligible. That's, yeah, okay. That's within the standard of error, right? That's not anything we would pay attention to, right? That's like half a vote or something like that, right? Which is not real. Such things half a vote, right? It's either a vote or not a vote. It's the same thing with collecting data from your team, right? If you want to get the ground truth, the people who are giving you the data have to give you the real data, right? And so when you're collecting the data, and let's just say you have a particular team member who is always behind, right? Who's always spending money on things that are above the budget they've been allocated, or maybe they, want the best super duper materials for a project that it doesn't require super duper materials, right? And so you go to collect the data from them and they give you, these fake numbers. Okay. If they give you fake numbers, then you're gonna have a fake result or response, right? You're gonna have something that isn't. Oh, that was weird. Like,
Like, don't come.
it is a weird day today, huh? What's going on today? God trying to tell us something? God's trying to tell us something. I don't know what.
We need to get out right now.
Yeah, maybe it's like, you guys need to leave right now, okay?
Yeah.
Go home, something, I don't know.
I don't know.
Just, it's creepy. Oh, so, oh my, you're looking at the door like, oh no, it's gonna open, but Daisy's gonna come through, okay? She can't come.
Because it was not completely closed.
Yeah, it was a good close, yeah, just there. But it's still kind of creepy though.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at who's collecting the data, you may want to have just an objective or one person collecting data, right? Or have a template report that, everybody uses that, okay, look, this weekly report, put all your information in there, but you also want to be able to go and source the information yourself, right? So let's just say someone has a piece of information they put into report every week. I want to make sure that I have access to wherever they're getting their numbers from, right? Where you generating this report, right? I want to see it myself because the report itself is the real document, right? And do those numbers on the report reflect what you're reporting to me on my report, right? Because they probably are not. Yeah, because in your mind, the report says 95, 80% complete, but you might be 90% complete, right? There might be some things that you skip, or maybe some, you're behind, right? So you say I'm 90% behind, ahead, or 90% done because you plan on working, over the weekend and catching up and this other stuff, right? So you fudge the numbers, right? Which causes me to fudge my numbers basically, right? Because I do it unknowingly, right? Because you gave me the information, I'm expecting that your data is sound and you're telling me the truth, and everybody else give me the same information, right? And so when that gets pulled into the mix, and I get a number, right? Oh, the team, we're 60% complete, or we're 95% complete at a project, right? Because if everybody fudges, right, it gets exponentially bigger. Okay, the error grows exponentially, right? And so what I don't want is a bunch of people giving me bad data, right? And so in order to alleviate that, the best bet is for me to, request the data, but also request source documents. Like, where's the report at, right? Or even give me your report generated by the system, and I'll pull the data myself that I want, right? Because there may be certain things I'm looking for that you're not necessarily savvy with, or you're just not gonna give me, okay? Uh, the other thing is, when you're looking at data and collecting it, and just reports in general, right? How often are you generating reports, right? Now, generating report every hour, probably not the most efficient thing, depending again on what the project is, right? If you are growing something in the lab, right, you're not gonna be checking every hour, right? But if you are, let's say, testing out a new recipe or testing out a new food item, right? And you're trying to see at what temperature does it cook well enough for you to flash freeze it, right? And then package it, right? You may very well have a report every 20, 15, 20 minutes, right? To kind of get an idea, okay, at the 15-minute mark, it's doing this, at the 20-minute mark, it's doing this, at the 25-minute mark, it's doing that, right? And be able to kind of annotate that. But in general, unless you're doing the direct research or direct R&D, you're gonna give the project manager a aggregate, an average, right? Time, right? On average, we try to, we ran 5 different tests. On average, it takes about 50 minutes for it to cook if it's flash frozen, takes it, 50 minutes to cook at 350. All right, and that's what we recommend you put on the package for people to cook it at, right? So that is fully cooked. But because they cook the food halfway through, then they flash freeze it, right? And then they let you reheat it and reconstitute it based on the instructions, right? But if we don't collect the information properly, right? If we don't give the consumer the right temperature, the right amount of time, right? You kind of have to play it by ear. So who collects the data, right, is important, right? How often you collect the data is also critical, all right? And where's the data stored? Most importantly, right? And who has access to it, right? Again, you don't want to give people too much access to the data, okay? Yes, they have access to their personal data as far as like what they're working on and the things they're doing, but unless they need it for their job or what they're doing, they should not have access to all the data. Okay, you as the product manager, yes, and you want to make sure you control that because you don't want people manipulating data. Right, you don't want people changing stuff, fudging numbers, right? And again, you want to be able to get to the source of where you got the data from, right? It can't just be a person, oh, these are my numbers, and that's just the way it is. Like, no, where'd you get these numbers? How'd you get these numbers? Because that doesn't look right, right? Imagine an engineer, a civil engineer at that, right? Or a construction site where, it matters point, whatever, 0.00, centimeters or inches or whatever it is to the left or the right, right? If you don't center it correctly, right? If you don't get the foundation correct, if you don't get the mixture correct as far as like it needs to be at this thing at this temperature in order for it to set the way it needs to set. If it doesn't, it's going to turn to mush, right? So you want to make sure all those things are correct because if they're not, then you got to start over, right? This money gone down the drain because people have not properly done their work, right? Collecting the data or understood the data. And so these little nuances about collecting data and making sure the data is accurate is extremely important for success because just little mistakes like that will cost people's lives, right? I'm sure you don't remember this, but um, yeah, I definitely remember this. You were been around. I don't think your parents might have been around. Well, your parents were definitely around, but so 1982, 82, maybe 83. Either way, when the space shuttle blew up, I don't know if you're familiar with that. So back in 1982, we had a mission to the moon, and it was the first mission that they let regular people on, teachers, firemen, they let them go on, part of a research project, stuff like that. And the first day they were going to launch to go to the moon, they had an issue, and they couldn't figure out what the issue was. And so they realized it was a piece of styrofoam that's supposed to protect the inner shell from the heat that was going to be caused by when the rocket kind of, yes, you know how rockets work, sort of, where there's a propulsion unit, and once it gets up in the air, it drops it. Yeah. Right? And so the propulsion unit was creating so much heat. There's a shell, styrofoam, whatever it is, that protects the actual rocket so that it doesn't burn up the actual material. So they kind of figured it out, but they were like, oh, it's one, right? It's just one piece of styrofoam with a special styrofoam. And they're like, okay, cool, no problem. And the way they calculated, they were like, oh, it's negligible, it's not gonna cause anything, everything else will be fine, right? And so the next day, they launched about 20 seconds, 25 seconds into the flight, they're in the air, the whole plane thing blows up. Whole shuttle blows up in the middle of the air in front of everybody. Because back in the day, they used to televise the shuttle launches. I don't know if they still do that now. Well, I know they stopped for a while after that happened, right? So it blew up, and because it was not mandatory, but most everybody in school, when I was in school, my school age, like in being in whatever grade.
Is there a movie about it?
I'm sure.
I feel like
Probably. Probably. There probably was a movie about it. I don't. Yeah, I think so. But either way, they, the shuttle blew up. They all died instantly, right? And then and because of where it blew up, it was still in the atmosphere. Everything kind of came down, right? And so as they were doing their analysis and trying to figure out like what went wrong, they realized like their miscalculation in the styrofoam, in that the way they had left the styrofoam, they had left a little gap between the styrofoam because it wasn't cut perfectly to seal it all the way. There was a little gap. Something that little. And the propulsion unit, when it went up in the air, it hit it burnt up all the styrofoam, or burnt up, it got in the actual structure of the shuttle, and it blew the shuttle up. Right? And so, yeah, a lot of engineers lost their job. Okay. A lot of people had to resign. A lot of people got fired. Right. Nobody went to jail. They probably should have, but we get it. It's a very technical process of going to the moon. But just little things like that, right? When you're collecting the data and trying to make sure that um, the project is going properly, right? Because think about a project manager that works at NASA, right? That's a serious project, right? What do they call those people? There's his name for it. Mission. They're not the mission commander per se, because the mission commander actually goes up in the air. There's somebody else who's on the ground, who's the project or flight coordinator, flight manager, right? Who makes sure the astronauts are good, the ship's good, everything's on schedule, the fuel, all the different parts that go into sending something in the air, right? That person is in charge of, right? They're basically the project manager for, that flight. Okay. And so in amassing their reports and that kind of thing, right? And understanding who had the final decision as to, us still going in the air, although the fire styrofoam was messed up. How did you make that decision? Probably based off some advice from an engineer that said, oh, it's negligible, no big deal. We took care of it, we fixed it. And then, right, the engineer who said they fixed it, right? They probably weren't the person that actually fixed it. No. Right? It probably was some technician who know what they're doing, right? Who understand the mechanics, who understand the dynamics of what they're doing, right? But just did a crappy job for whatever reason. Maybe they had some stuff on their mind, maybe they were rushing, it's a lot of pressure. When you're talking about, hey, we need to get the flight up because it costs $1 million a day, every day it doesn't go up, right? There's a lot of external pressure coming for the team, right? But it goes to the importance of, why collecting data is important, where you collect the data is important, how the data gets analyzed, what the results are, and what actions you take based on those results, right? And that's really where kind of rubber meets the road is, what do you do with those answers? What do you do with those results, right? And how are they implemented, right? Because the results will show you one thing, right? Interpretation is something different, right? We may get the same set of data and results, but I'll interpret them totally different than you will, right? Sometimes, not always, right? But we want all the interpretations to have a consensus. We want everyone to agree, like, okay, you see the numbers, what are the numbers telling you? Well, they're telling me that we're, you know, 10 days behind and we're $100,000 in the hole. What are the numbers telling you? Telling us that, yeah, we're 8 days behind and $60,000 in the hole, right? Somewhere in there is the truth, right? But what do we know? We're behind and we run into budget issues now, right? We our allocated money has somehow dried up, right? So that kind of gives us a sense of where we're at in the project, because the project manager has to report up to his boss or her boss, right? And for them to be able to say, look, we're 80% done with the project, because if it's a high vis project, something that they've really been pushing, there's gonna be eyes on the project. Okay, and if it's eyes on the project, it's gonna be people that are like, hey, we need to hurry up and get this done, okay, because it's costing us money, or I made promises, right, that um people are relying on, or they're basing their timelines on these promises that I made that I would deliver by this date. And so that means you have to deliver by the date you promised and told me, right? And so people take these pieces of information and this data very seriously, right? So when we look at the reports, right, we're gonna talk about who gets the progress reports, right? How they're gonna be transmitted, right? Nowadays, most reports are transmitted electronically. You're getting in your email, or maybe if you go to meetings, maybe you do hard copies, but most time people will pull up the reports. It gets distributed prior to any meetings, so people have a chance to analyze and kind of take a look at it as a whole, and then have any questions they can ask later on down the line. All right. And then when will the report be distributed? Right. Again, if you're going to have a meeting or you're gonna have some kind of gathering, you probably want to distribute the reports prior to, so that people have an opportunity to look at it, digest it, formulate any questions they have, look at what their part was, right? Make sure that's correct. And then after that, go into the meeting with some knowledge base, so that we can go ahead and have a real conversation and nobody's in there like, oh, I have to read it first before I may give you an answer and stuff like that, right? Right. So having the progress report, I would say that really is up to the project managers to format, right, as to what they want on there, but typically you want to have, the three things about PM that are important, right? Cost, schedule, and quality, right? I want to talk about if I'm on time or how the schedule's looking, right? I want to talk about how much money I spend. I want to talk about, are we attaining the goals, right? Are we attaining the objectives that we set forth in the scope, right, for the project? Are we just goofing around and not hitting our marks, all right? We kind of hitting a couple marks, we haven't hit all the marks. In order to us to go to this next place, we need to finish this, that kind of thing, right? And as the project progresses, you'll have less and less meetings, right? Because less and less, the progress may slow, because at the beginning, everything's happening, right? A lot of things are going on, right? People are just churning away. But as the project commences, or not commences, but progresses, there's less and less things to do, right? When you're cooking a recipe, making something, at the beginning, you get all the ingredients ready, right? Chop up your onions, your carrots, celery, you got your salt, pepper, everything set up, right? Maybe not, maybe you're kind of one of those people that grab stuff out of the pantry as you're cooking, right? You know the recipe, or maybe you don't, whatever the case may be, right? But you prep, okay? And so the beginning, you're putting in your oil, the Trinity, boom, 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 you're doing your thing, right? And then, oh, put some chicken broth in. Okay, we got that going. And as you go on, more and more things get exhausted. Less and less steps. Okay, what's left now? All right, put the chicken in. All right, now, put in the shrimp. Okay, great. Now what's the last step? Cover it, put it on simmer, wait 30 minutes. Okay, what do you do with that? Maybe you have a drink, all right? I'll have a drink because I was stressful, right? I was making, no paella or something, okay? It was very stressful. I don't know what I'm doing. Hopefully it doesn't make me sick, Okay, so at the end, right, or towards the completion, there's less and less things to do. But that's when you are or should be more and more vigilant as to what's going on, right? Because this is where people start to get very lazy, they get very lackadaisical, they get very complacent. Oh, it's almost done, we're at the end, I did my part already, right? They're not looking for any um, kind of edits or feedback or review, right? Same thing when you guys work on your project, on your case study, right? I'm sure you guys split it up. Hey, you do this, you do that, right? When one of you were done with your part, like, hey, I'm done with mine. All right, put yours on top of it, and we're gonna call it a day, right? But who's putting it together? Who's actually making it make it seem like it's one document, right? Because that's what tends to happen. The project manager has to take all these disparate pieces of information or parts and create an interface to where they all integrate, right? This part here is complete. Okay, how does it lock into the next part? Okay, and so boom, we have an interface. We have some kind of integration tool that locks these two parts together that makes them a team. All right, the next part goes in. Boom, what's the tool for that one, right? How do we put them all together so that it looks like one car, right? Not delivering an engine, a door, tires to the consumer, right? Put it yourself, DIY, right? We know that's not what we do. We put the car together and we sell the car as a whole, right? And then you, after you get the car, as the owner, something goes wrong, then you go, I just need a tire, or I need a steering wheel, or I need a roof, or I need a windshield, right? At that point, you are putting together piece by piece, but at the beginning of the project, project managers basically putting it together, connecting it, making sure that it's delivered like it should be, right? But we're looking at, schedule, cost, and scope, okay? Then we want to see what are the issues or problems that we had that we identified in the last meeting, right? We want to come back and like, okay, last week we talked about there being an issue with, I don't know, whatever it is. What's the status on that? Did we fix that? Yes, we fixed it. Okay, cool. How did we fix it? It was this. All right, how much did it cost? It cost this much. Okay, it's all done. Is there anything else we need to do with it? No, it's all complete. Job done. All right, task closed out. Boom. All right, perfect. All right, next problem. What about this? This one's still in the works. Why? Well, the part is on back order. Okay, and so we have to wait till the part gets in, or we can go try to source the part from another place. It's just gonna cost us more money, okay? And it may be a different part, and we may have to alter it or fabricate it to some degree, all right? Like, okay, let's talk about that option, right? At the 6 week mark, right? We might be at the 4 week mark where we have, we don't need that particular part till, that particular activity done till week 6, right? And so because of that, we have some slack that we say, okay, you know what? We have time for this part to come in. We don't need everything to complete to week 6. Keep me updated. Next meeting, I'll ask you about this problem again. Okay. So that's kind of how you want to, address issues that we've identified before, right? And then we're going to identify new issues, right? Now, there may not be any, but 10 times out of 10, there's new issues, okay? Whatever it is. It could be personnel issues, it could be manpower issues, it could be budget issues, it could be just project issues, it could just be regular old issues with people not getting along, team dynamic issues, that kind of thing, okay? All right. So when we talk about control, okay, process of comparing actual performance against plan to identify deviation, evaluate possible alternative course of action, and take appropriate corrective action. All right. Control steps of project, setting a baseline without without a reference, it's really hard to figure out if you're doing good or bad. You have to have a starting point, right? Measuring progress and performance, right? That's a given, right? Comparing plan against actual. Again, kind of the same thing. That's why we set a baseline, right? Because now we're looking at, all right, I planned $100,000. Did we actually spend $100,000, right? Did we spend more or less, right? And one of the things that you're gonna have, which you should do, and it's not gonna be you per se, it'll probably be your data guy, data analytics guy, is to figure out what is the margin of error, right? What is my standard deviation? Okay, and what I mean by standard deviation is if I have a range, right? How accurate do I think my range is? Okay, what's my buffer? Right? So for instance, you'll see polling that says, 60% of people, like Oreos, plus or minus 2%. Okay, so what that tells me is that that specific number you gave me, right? I could be 2% below that or 2% above that, but it's still within the range of number of people that like, or percent of people that like Oreos. Okay, it's still within acceptable range of people that like Oreos, right? And that's all stats. But you want to have that so that you can understand, like, if a system or process is off, right? If I have a system or process that's let's just use this example, instance, right? If I have a class and it's a softball class, right? Let's just say I don't know, my senior year in college, I was pretty much done with my curriculum, but I had just had to have 15 credit hours. So I took basketball one, basketball two, weightlifting, and I took, I think it was a photography class, which was a mistake because it was a lot of work. It was actually very complicated class. All right, but either way, I had softball classes, right? So the understanding is that the softball classes, right, are for easy A's, right? What do you gotta do for a basketball class? All I do is show up and play basketball, right? Which I was already doing, right? Because the team, basically, if you're on a team, you have to join that class. It doesn't matter, right? Because my coach was the teacher for the class, so it didn't matter. Okay, and so the understanding is that everyone gets an A in that class because you gotta do is show up, right? But guess what? Guess who doesn't show up to the class? Who doesn't show up to the class? No, I show up to the class. No, all right. So for this particular class, right, and a lot of um athletic classes, right, a lot of times the women don't show up. Why? Because they don't want to get their hair sweaty. They don't want to mess up their nails.
I attend basketball class.
Well, yeah, that's good, I'm glad you did, right? But a lot of women don't, right? Or you have the guys that are not interested in sports at all, but they took the class because it was an easy A, right? So I'm expecting everyone to get A's, right? And let's just say I expect everybody to get a 95%, okay? Plus or minus 5%. So basically, on average, they get it between a 90 and 100%, okay? When I see somebody that is averaging an 85, right, or an 80, bless you, I automatically go, oh, what is wrong? Why does this person have an 80, right? So then I go back and look at the grades, right? And back then, attendance used to be graded. Okay, 25% your grade, or not, or 10% your grade was attendance. And so I would look, I could see that, oh, this person didn't show up to class, right? And so that particular margin of error, right? And because the person was outside of that margin of error, indicated to me, gave me a flag to say something is wrong. Okay? Something's off. And if something's off, I have to figure out what's wrong. Like what is off, right? The person doesn't come to class, and so that's affecting their grade. When they do come to class, they're fine, all right? If they're okay with a B, it doesn't matter, right? But of course, nobody's okay with a B, especially with a fluff class, right? So they'll come and say, how come I got a B in the class? I need an A because it's a GPA booster. Well, you need to come to class. Okay. Well, I don't like coming to class because, then I gotta go to all my other classes sweaty. I don't want to take a shower on campus and the campus showers and all kind of stories, right? But what it does is it gives you an indicator as to whether or not you are within that margin of error, within that range. Because if you're within the range, everything's fine. You're okay, right? Because you can account for the variance, you can account for kind of the things that are going astray, right? Oh, not coming to class, not participating. Those are all variables that I can account for the variance for when I'm talking about my outcome, right? The grade. So if you don't have that, right, it's hard for you to tell if something is off, okay? And so you always want to be able to have a range, but also understand what is my margin of error, right? What is my standard deviation? Where where do I start to worry if it goes out of a certain range, right? And it may not seem important, but a lot of things that we have now, or a lot of things that we deal with right now are based on that, right? For instance, when you get you guys probably don't eat Chips Ahoy or anything like that. You know what Chips Ahoy are, right? Chocolate chip cookies, right? Okay, chocolate chips. Okay. When Chips Ahoy not first came out, but somewhere in the late '90s, early 2000s, whatever, Chip Ahoy got sued.
Oh.
Okay, because one lady, she got a bag of Chips Ahoy. She pulls the chip out. Pulls the cookie out. It has 5 or 6 chips in it. Chocolate chips in it. Cool, right? Because the cookie's only this big, right? You got 5 or 6 chips, plenty. She pulls out another cookie. There's 1 chip in it. Okay. She pulls out another cookie. There's 3 chips in it. Right. She pulls out a cookie. There's no chips in it. She pulls out a cookie. There's 20 chips in it. Okay. So she sued because there's no consistency. All right. And consistency is probably one of the most important things for your product. All right. Think about McDonald's with no consistency. There's a reason why you can go to any McDonald's and it tastes the same. It's consistent.
It's like Chipotle.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's consistent, right? It doesn't matter. You go to Chipotle here, you go to Chipotle anywhere. It's the same thing. It tastes the same, right? It's consistency. So she ended up suing Chips Ahoy, and Chips Ahoy ended up having to revamp their whole system because you have to have a uniform amount of chips in each cookie. There's an expectation, right? As a consumer, if I buy a chocolate chip cookie and there's no chocolate chips in it, we got problems.
Yeah.
Right? So they had to go back and figure out a system in which each cookie got a certain amount of chips. But what is that number? Right? So they have to go back, measure the cookie, right? That means I have to get an average size of the cookie, right? Because none of the cookies are the same size. They may look like it, but there's nothing that's ever exactly the same. I can make 100 of these. They're all unique, right? They're very minor or very like not observable differences, but they're variations and stuff. Or if you ever go to like IKEA, right? Or you try to put furniture together, okay? And they give you these screws. You put the screw in, it doesn't fit, right? But then you grab another screw, it goes right in, right? It's the variation, right? Although the screws and the holes are all made by the same person using the same technique, there's variations in it. And so you have to go back, measure the cookie. Then after we measure the cookie, we have to figure out what is the optimal amount of chips the cookie should have, right? Then once we figure that out, now we need to figure out, how do we do that? How do we put exactly 6 chips or 7 chips into the cookies? And if we can't do that, what's an acceptable range of chips in a cookie that we can have, right? So they came up with a number, and they also had a range. They had a margin of error, all right? So between, 6 to 8 chips per cookie, okay? If you read the packaging very carefully, right, it'll say weight may vary or cookies may vary in number of chips, right? That's for them to cover their butt, right? But if they say the cookies will have 8 chips in it, and it has, or between 6 and 8, and it has 7 chips in it, guess what? They met their obligation to you as a consumer, okay? Same thing with Starbucks. They got sued, okay? Because before, they had the venti, not even before the venti, just the tall, whatever it was. What is the big one? The grande, excuse me. Huh? Yeah, the venti's the big one.
No, the big one is the trend.
Oh, they have a Trenta? Sweet Jesus. Why would you do that to yourself?
Oh, they don't make it for every drink though, they only can do it for like certain drink.
Like what?
Refreshers, probably like, or teas.
That's a lot of bathroom time. But they got sued because the young lady went in there and she asked for, I think it was iced coffee or whatever, okay? And so you guys may think the same thing, I don't know, right? When you put ice in a cup and then you pour the liquid into the cup, do you think you're getting more or less if you didn't have the ice?
You're getting more if you didn't have the ice.
You're getting more if you didn't have the ice. Why you think that?
Cause, what do you know? The ice is gonna take the space that the,
Because of the space, because
yeah,
of the
that the ice
space
is gonna
that's gonna take, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. It's the same exact thing. Same exact size. 16 ounces is 16 ounces. Doesn't matter, right? What happens is that the ice, yes, is taking up space, but don't forget that the ice also has a surface area in which the coffee clings onto. That's why it makes it seem like there's less in it, because the liquid is occupying the space. The ice cube is occupying the space, but it still is being covered up by the liquid. Okay? It's more physics stuff than anything else. Okay? So there really is no difference if you get ice or don't get ice, all right? But
You will get like diluted drink later.
you get a diluted drink later on, right? You get more because you get water,
Yeah.
right? But you don't get the product, right? The product stays the same. It's just that the product becomes diluted because of the ice cubes, right? And so she sued Starbucks, right? But Starbucks was not, what happened, Starbucks was putting a bunch of ice in it to the top and not filling it to the top, because the ice does have displacement. And so what happens is you put a bunch of ice in, right? The liquid goes in, the ice displaces the liquid, and the liquid rises, right? The liquid rises above the container. It goes more than the container can actually hold, right? Because of the placement of the ice. So you have 14 ounces, you'll have 16 ounces in there, but it'll be like right at the top, right? So what you need to do is put it in another container. Okay? So if you put too much ice, yes, you don't get as much. It's not because it's not because it doesn't, it's because they have to put in a different container because of displacement, right? But you can't fill up too high. If you fill up too high, it's definitely not gonna have enough fruit,
Yeah.
right? So she sued Starbucks. And so if you notice, when you go to Starbucks, a lot of people will say no ice, or they'll go to McDonald's and say no ice in their drink, or a little ice, okay? Because they don't want to be filled up with ice, right? And then get the illusion or the appearance that they're not getting enough. And in addition, the ice melts, right? So nobody wants diluted Starbucks or diluted whatever, root beer or wine punch, whatever the case may be, right? So again, coming up with an average, right? And then understanding the range in which I can have a certain amount of liquids, right? So basically they were like, look, we're never gonna get it perfect because there's no perfect scoop of ice, right? So what Starbucks did say, look, when you put ice in it, you will put half a scoop of ice in it as a standard. If someone says no ice, cool. Someone says extra ice, you put 2 scoops, right? Something like that, right? But we have half a scoop as our standard. And from there, you fill it up till it hits the top. And then they come with a range of, okay, if it's between, I don't know how big a grande is, but let's just say 12 fluid ounces. It's between 10 and let's say 14 fluid ounces. We're good. Okay, we can't be sued. We fulfilled the obligation. You could get 2 less ounces, or you can get 2 more ounces, right? But as far as our obligation to you as a consumer and giving you what you paid for, we're within the acceptable margin of error, right? We're within that standard deviation. We need to know that, all right? And so all this stuff goes into, project management, tracking the progress, right? Because you may have a project where you've been working on it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or whatever the case may be. And your boss says, hey, like, should we be done with this? Like, no. Well, what's the margin of error? Well, typically this project takes 3 weeks. But let's just say it takes 21 days, all right? But we have a margin of error of plus or minus 3 days. So it could take, 18 days, it could take 24 days. That's still within the acceptable range of when we should be done, okay? And so this is important when you're talking about, when you guys, like, let's just say, for instance, you move into a new place and you're getting cable, right? And the guy says, we'll be there between 8 and 12, okay? So what do? You sit at the house and you wait from 8 to 12, right? The person may show up at 9, they may show up at 9:59, or they may show up at 11:59, whatever time, in between 8 and 12. The way they get that is by determining the average time on the job, right? And what the standard deviation is based on the other data points they have. And then once I get that, I can look in and go, okay, you have 4 jobs this morning. If they all take an average of 30 minutes, right? And we have a plus or minus of 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes longer or 10 minutes shorter, right? Plus driving time. Well, what's the average driving time to get to where we need to get to, right? Depending on your area, but usually they have them in location service regions, right? And then they give the customer, all right, we'll be there between 8 and 12, right? That way you know that, okay, they'll be here between 8 and 12. They'll show up and literally be there for 5 minutes, right? Or they may show up and like, oh, you got a problem, and they're there for 40 minutes, right? You never know, right? But it's already it's already factored in. And so it doesn't throw the person who's installing, who's doing the work, it doesn't throw their schedule off because they've already counted for it, right? Because they understand, hey, this is my acceptable range. And I have, my margin of error, plus or minus 10 minutes, right? Anything above that, then I have to start thinking about, okay, how's that gonna impact the other jobs I have? Okay? Am I gonna be late for this 8 to 12 because I have my last one before I went to come see you, right? It's taking me an hour, right? The person, or I'm in traffic jam, or the person, thought they had this and didn't have that, right? I had to go back to my car, back to the utility van and get something, right? All those things factor in, and as you get more and more behind, the time exponentially grows, right? So if I'm 10 minutes late here and 10 minutes late there, that's 20 minutes late for the next appointment, right? Plus whatever time it take me to drive and everything else that's I gotta account for, right? And so it's extremely important that you have to set the baseline, get the average, understand what your margin of error is, right? Because that's gonna indicate to you whether or not you're on track, off track, below track, right? How are we doing, right? And then I will prompt you to make some corrective actions, right? To proper steps into which you understand, okay, what am I doing? How do I need to do it? Am I gonna be able to deliver all this stuff on time today, right? Even probably when you guys order food from Instacart or Postmates or anything like that, it'll give you a time, right? Be there in 20 minutes, right? Or an hour, whatever the case may be, right? And then it'll adjust. Or Uber does this all the time. Be there in 5 minutes, drive 5 minutes away, and then boom, it changes again. Then it changes again, then changes again, right? Because that is a dynamic, real-time system, right? That's taking into account where the person's at, the traffic, all these other factors, right? And trying to give you as the consumer a realistic time period or time frame as to when they'll be there, right? What time is it? 4. Okay, let's take a quick 10 minutes and then come back. The Google Flight, you know what I'm saying, everything on it. All right, talking about some, monitoring time performance, all right? So there's a lot of tools out there that project managers use in order to manage it, trying to figure out, okay, the time, the performance, the cost, all that stuff. I remember initially when we first started the class, I talked about Gantt charts and using, what we call a, Microsoft Office suite application called, basically called Project Manager or Microsoft Office or Project Managers. And, what that does, it gives project managers a way in which to track everything in one place, assign tasks, budgets, anything that you can think of that you want to have as far as information and data, you can do it in Microsoft Project PM, okay? And so, uh, one of the things that we use or has been used is called a Gantt chart, okay? And we'll look at it here shortly, but Gantt chart is basically a bar chart. Okay, and the bar chart has different variables that it's tracking, all right, and it has different stages of variable phases of the particular tracking. So it may have a bar with it annotates the baseline, and then it has a bar that annotates the actual, and it has another bar that compares the cost or the man hours assigned to it as compared to the man hours actually, used to complete the project, right? So it's really, useful tool, in order to track things and kind of get a visualization of what's going on pretty quickly, okay? The control chart is the next thing that they use, a little more technical, okay? It's a plot between the difference of the schedule and actual times on a critical path at a given point on the project, all right? And notice that this one uses the critical path. So when, as we look at, the number of days and the way that we're approaching the project, right? Um, are we actually staying with that particular time frame, right? Are we on the right path for the critical path as far as relates to cost and scheduling, okay? Then you have milestone, all right? Milestone scheduling, just like it says, right? We judge our schedule or we set our schedule up based on certain things that we hit, all right? Certain events, all right? So if I'm, per se, in the business of bottling water, okay, and I need to get 1 million of these things bottled up, for, Israel or Gaza, wherever the case may be, right? One of my milestones might be, hey, get the water bottle filled up. Once we get the water bottle filled up, we have to put it on pallets, all right? And then the third stage is once we get on pallets, we have to put it on some kind of transportation, okay? And so for me, the milestones are water bottles filled, that's one milestone. We can move on to the next one. What happens in between that is really not important to me. The next milestone is, oh, all the bottles are on pallets, the pallets are packaged, strapped down. That's my second milestone. My third milestone is make sure to get on the truck. Once they get on the truck, I get how many I want on the truck, then I reached all my milestones, project complete. It leaves the warehouse or wherever, and it goes off to its destination, right? And another milestone might be, delivery, but usually that's not within my purview. That's not within the PM's thing, depending on what it is, right? Of course, if it's a commission or a certain project, of course, delivery is all mine. But it may not be, I'm not delivering something like pallets of water and that kind of thing. I'm delivering a product. So if I'm delivering the product, I'll be in charge of that, right? So here's an example of baseline and tracking being a Gantt chart. Okay, so you can see we got, if you look at the legend, we got the baseline duration, we got the slack, right? And again, slack is the amount of time that you have within your project in which, if there's a delay, the project will still stay on track, okay? So you got your slack, you got your actual completed, and you have your remaining duration. So there's a lot of things going on, but if you look at when they have it, right, annotated as today, right, and just go down the line, you can see, that's the baseline, right? But you can see we're pretty much on track for the most part, right? If we look at day 6, we see, where we're at, yeah, so we're not too bad, right? We're kind of on track, we're not too bad. But you can see everything here as the line touches for this date, right, where we're at, right? Actually completed. We could look at the baseline, right? As we baseline again, okay? So we are on track. So we're looking at the actual completed and the baseline, and then this is what's left over, the duration, right? So it gives you an idea of, how we're doing as compared to how we thought we were gonna do, right? How we planned everything out. Okay, this is a control chart. No different, right? No more complicated, okay? And again, time periods on the left, excuse me, and the reporting periods on the bottom, okay? So the X and Y axis are established, and this is more of a quadrant based analysis, right? So if it's in this quadrant here, that means we're behind schedule, okay? Or down, even over here, if it's below here, right? If it's up here, it's ahead of schedule, all right? Because we look at the date, we look at the dot, right, where we're at. As far as we're 5 days in, the reporting period is, I don't know, June or whatever it is, right? For June, we're right here, 5 days, okay, so we're good, okay, because we are basically ahead of schedule or we're on point, okay? Because this is the line right here, all right, this is our 0, right? 0 is always gonna be your default average, all right? So your default average is always 0 and your standard deviation is always 1, okay? And what I mean by that is that there's always your starting point, whatever it is, it could be. My starting point is an A, all right? From a statistical standpoint, that's your zero, all right? Your A is your zero, because that's your starting point. And then your standard deviation or your margin of error is always one, but that's not a one as a one, it's one unit. All right, so then you have to figure out what the standard deviation is. So if the standard deviation is, 1 day, all right, or let's just say standard deviation is 10 days, all right? And I have a one standard deviation, that means that for every one standard deviation, I have 10 days of delay. Whether it be positive or negative, whatever the case may be, plus or minus 10, right? That's the one standard deviation, and that is the norm, that's considered, that's just the way things are, right? We're always starting at zero, and we always have one standard deviation, but we have to figure out what the standard deviation is. All right, whatever the margin of error is, we need to figure that out. What does that one unit mean? All right, so like for instance, a dollar is a dollar, but how many units does it have in it as far as, if we say one standard deviation is a quarter? How many units how many deviations does a dollar have? If one standard deviation is a quarter, it's 25 cents, and you have a dollar, how many deviations do I have?
4.
4, right? Because each unit is 25 cents. Okay, same thing. Each unit is 10 days. Each unit is whatever, but it's one unit. All right, so you have your mean or your starting point is 0. It doesn't matter what it is, that's irrelevant, all right? As far as like you calculating, your margin of error, right? Because what you're trying to do is kind of standardize things so that it's easily manipulated, it's easily computed and calculated, and everybody understands, okay, what does that mean? $1 means it's 4 quarters. $1 means it's 10 dimes. $1 means it's 100 pennies, right? Now, we don't necessarily have to say 100 pennies, we just say a dollar, and it's understood that means it's 100 pennies, it's 10 dimes, it's 20 nickels. It all depends on how we are measuring our particular, project, or how we're measuring whatever the metric is, okay? So that's the control chart, all right? And then we have earned value management, all right? Methodology that combines scope, schedule, and resource measurement to assess project performance and progress, right? Something that the Department of Defense uses, okay? And really what we're looking at is the elapsed time in align with the percentage of elapsed money, okay? So remember earlier I was saying that we're 80% done with the project, we should be 80% done with the money, okay? If we're not 80% done with the money, where we at? We are only 50% done with the money. Oh, so we're below budget, all right? But why? Okay, you have to know why. Because just because it's like, you have a bank account and you have $1,000 in there, right? You wake up tomorrow morning, just $10,000 in there. Yeah, nice, right? Not so nice, okay, because you need to find out where it came from before you go spend it, right? No, yeah, you gotta find out where it came from, okay, before you go spend it. Don't go running out. You see, that's how you get in trouble, okay? Because where you got it from, whoever sent it to you was a mistake, right? And guess what? They're gonna come looking for it and they're gonna take it out no matter what. You're gonna end up owing. This happened, when did it happen? That happened, probably a month ago. There was an ATM glitch, which happens quite often. More people, the more times people realize. So this one guy, he went to the ATM and he took out $100. And then when he got the money, the machine actually gave him $500. But on the ledger, on his account, it just showed $100 deducted, but the machine gave him $500. So then he do, because the max, most ATM machines is, I think, $600 or something like that. $600 to $800 you can take out via the ATM machine, right? So what he did was took his card out and he maxed out $800. right? But he really maxed out $4,000. Because for every 100, he actually got 500,
Oh my God.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so he told somebody else, they went to that machine,
And did.
they did the same thing. Next thing they had a line around the machine of people straight up just built like messing the machine up. They did an update on the ATM machine and it didn't run properly. And it had this glitch. Okay. Well, guess what? The bank's gonna notice some money's missing, okay, very quickly. All right, something's up. Where did this money go? Right? When they reconcile at the end of the day, oh, we were giving away money. Off of what? Off this glitch. Okay, guess what? Now we just go look at all the accounts. All right. Not to mention, when you go to ATM, you're on camera, right? And the transactions are recorded and also they're on a ledger. I know exactly whose ATM card went in and what they got. All right. All right. Although the ledger may say from their bank account, it may say they only got $100, but from the general bank account, it'll tell me this transaction is associated with a $500 deduction. All of their account only got deducted $100. The other $400 came from someplace else. Maybe your account, right? Maybe the house account, whatever account, right? So the main ledger has it. Okay, it has this transaction is $500, but it doesn't match the transaction that actually occurred, right? That the person put in. The person inputted 100, they got 500. Their account is only registering $100 because of the glitch, right? So guess what? Hey, need to bring that money back, buddy. Ain't got no money. Guess what? I got these fresh new sneakers though.
Oh my God.
I got a new outfit. Yeah, I got a haircut. I'm going out to the club tonight. Matter of fact, I'm going to Vegas. I'm gonna win some more money, right? No, it doesn't work that way. Okay.
So they have to give it back?
The bank, yes, the bank's gonna get their money. You gotta give it back, all right? And if you don't give it back, guess what? You got negative balance. Okay?
He doesn't go to jail.
No, not your fault. Now, even though it is, as long as you give it back, which is really not something you have any control over, really. The only way you could not give it back is for you to basically change your bank account, change the bank in general.
Right after.
Yeah. Because if most people have their money going into a particular bank account through a draft. So if the bank puts in that you are $4,000 in the hole, right? As soon as any money hits, it gets applied to that negative balance.
Oh.
Yeah, as soon as any money, it doesn't matter. The penny comes in and boom, it gets applied to that negative balance until you make it whole, till you get to zero balance or you get to, whatever. So the only way around that is to basically call your institution or change your direct deposit to a different bank. Right? Which doesn't, it's not a quick process per se, right? Like wherever you work at, if you tell them, hey, I need you to deposit my money in this bank account, not this one, it's not something they can do just like that.
Yeah.
They can put the paperwork in, they can initiate the process, but the process itself takes time to create the account, to create the connection, right? And then have the money funnel from payroll into this new account, right? And so it doesn't take too much time, but definitely takes a little bit more time, right? That's the only way. And then after that, it's gonna end up on your credit report somewhere, or they may come after you legally. Okay. So either way, we want to make sure that we can compare the budget and the completion or the progress of the project at the same time, right? If those two things should line up, we should very much, if we're 80% done with the project, we should be 80% done or close to that percentage with the money, okay, with our budget. So we can look at planned plan cost expenditure, vice, actual cost expenditure and that kind of thing. And then try to figure out, okay, why do we have so much extra money? Or, not this time, not this time, okay?
Make sure I shut.
We shut it tight. Make sure that
I got scared.
you got scared. He said, don't be scared, okay? He said, don't be scared. It's safe. God is on our side, okay? No monsters coming to get you. All right, this one is all about physics and science, all right? Vacuum and space. But we definitely want to make sure that we understand that as the work progresses, we are spending the appropriate amount of money and then within budget. And if we're under budget, that's great. But if we're under budget too much, then that tells me that we didn't spend the money properly. There may have been some shortcuts taken that we didn't want to take, right? Maybe we bought some inferior materials, or somebody made a decision to buy cheaper, material, and then that's gonna lead to a poor product because sometimes there's products that you have to buy a certain material because it just needs it, right? So in order for it to last, right? If you are buying something that's supposed to be a durable good, something that's supposed to last forever, and then it doesn't work, right? Then because you bought cheap materials and now it didn't last like as long as it's supposed to, and it wasn't as durable as it should be, you gotta go back. Right? You gotta go back. I'm dealing with that issue now. I bought a iMac desktop and it's refurbished. Works great, except for the microphone. So I can't talk. No one can hear me when I'm speaking on my meetings. And so I called them up like, hey, the microphone isn't working. They're like, oh, try this, try this, try this. I've tried all that. Okay, it's not working. I think it's a hardware issue. Not that they use faulty equipment. Maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe they some second, aftermarket stuff. I don't know. No idea. The point is that now they have to either fix it, send me a new microphone, and maybe I can install it, or send me someplace where I can get it installed, or they have to get me to send me a new computer in general. And then I send them back this one so they can fix it, right? But either way, it's all an inconvenience, right? For me, for them, right? Now they have to spend more money in postage and packaging and shipping and all this other stuff, right? Not to mention, me as a customer, I'm not gonna be happy about that. And so I may very well report to other clients and customers. I may go on Yelp or go on social media and say, do not mess with this company. Their products are inferior, although they charge you a certain amount of money, right? You don't want to buy from them, okay? Because of XYZ, all right? So, excuse me. It's important that you keep track of that stuff, right? So developing an integrated cost scheduling system, right? The first thing is to develop their work schedule, okay? Then develop work and resource schedule, right? Basically, we look at the work schedule, we look at the resources available, and we figure out, okay, on this week or this day, Daisy and Mayuka need, this computer, or they need this printer, or they need this right particular resource, right? So that it's allocated for them for 3 hours. It's like reserving something, right? Or allocating or putting a resource against something, right? Kind of like collateral, sort of, right? Develop a time-phased budget, okay? And then the at work package level collect the actual cost for the work performed, okay? And then compute the schedule variance and cost variance, all right? And so basically you want to set up the work schedule, you want to put all the resources to it, you want to figure out, what the amount of money that you're going to be spending on this particular task and also the time, right, allocated to it. And then you're going to see, what the difference is between the time you scheduled or budgeted, right? And time and money as compared to what you actually happened, right? And this happens a lot and not a lot, it just happens in general. When you go take your car in, for instance, okay? When you take your car to the dealership for maintenance, right? first thing they do is a diagnosis. Okay, and once they get the diagnosis, they have a certain amount of time for each job that they know, hey, if it's a transmission, it's gonna take 16 hours. If it's a light bulb, it's gonna take an hour, right? And what are the associated costs with that as far as labor, okay? And so this is where you get this crazy number of, you know, labor, right? Because if you go to the dealership, how much is it per hour for them to look at your car, to fix your car? Do you guys know? What's the labor rate for mechanics now?
40,
40? Oh, I wish. Man, 40?
25.
Oh, no.
50,
Talking about $130.
$130.
130, 120, $130. That's how much it costs per hour for you. When you take your car into a mechanic and you wonder like, why is it so expensive? It's not the parts. Well, it is the parts because they mark up, but it's the labor. It's the labor.
Oh my God.
The labor is 120, right? And so that goes into a formula where Toyota, for instance, right? The the labor per hour would be 120. Okay. Part of that is the mechanic's salary. $45 of that, $50 an hour is the mechanic's salary. The rest of it is for the company. Admin, overhead, whatever it is. All right. And then you gotta pay for the parts. And then you gotta pay for the markup. Okay? Because that's where all car companies make their money, is in maintenance. It's not in selling the car. They make very little money. Probably make $1,000 if that on selling the car. Maybe 500. Okay? So don't think that when they're selling these cars, they know that they're making a bunch of money. They're not. Right? Where they get their money, where dealerships make their money is through maintenance. Because they charge you 120 an hour for labor, right? And there's nothing on the car that's gonna be less than an hour for the most part. Right? Even the diagnostic is $100 nowadays. Okay. And so, but I need a way in which I can look at, what I plan as far as time and budget and what actually happened. I need to be able to compare those two. Because now when Total looks at, okay, you got a transmission job that should have took 4 hours, you took 6 hours, right? All right, mechanic, you cost us money, right? Because you can't go back to the consumer and say, oh, it's 6 hours, but it's 4, right? Unless there was something unusual. Normally, it's the mechanic and the pace they're working at. There's nothing unusual, right? And if there was something unusual, you go back and you talk to the consumer. But if it's not dealing with the client, the company or the manager will go to that particular tech and go, hey, do you need more training? Do I need to send you back for the transmission portion of your training? All right. What happened? Okay. Because you have exceeded the allocated time, right? Or maybe if it wasn't their fault, let's just say, for instance, the job said it was 4 hours and it was going to cost $1,200. And lo and behold, it's 6 hours and we're up to, $2,000, right? Maybe there was a power outage, maybe something was wrong, maybe one of the tools broke. It could be a number of things, right? But that's not something that you want to go to have to tell the consumer, the client, like, hey, it's gonna cost you extra $800 from what I quoted you, right? That's why you have to be explained when people, mechanic or somebody says it's gonna give you an estimate. An estimate needs to be relatively close to what it is that you end up with paying. Because if it's anything more, then you're gonna have some questions. Like, why you said 1,500? Why is my paying $1,800? Well, X, Y, Z. Okay, well that has nothing to do with me. Okay, or okay, I understand, right? So it all depends. We got to talk. Sorry. Schedule. Those examples. Oh, these are just examples of different reports and charts and stuff like that. All right, let's look at some performance index, right? So cost performance index, okay, CPI, all right? And so as you can tell, there's formulas for everything. And so you're not really necessarily doing this on your own. You just need to know which metric you're looking at. And then once you figure out which, index or metric you're looking at, you can just calculate the formula, which is pretty straightforward, okay? And they normally all have to do with either the budget, the amount actually spent, right? Or the time that we budgeted and the actual time that we actually use, right? Trying to figure out, okay, are we efficient with our time? Are we efficient with our money in the budget? And that kind of thing. All right. All right, so forecasting is another important tool, right? In projecting, making sure that we capture all the appropriate costs, right? And forecasting is now a science. And forecasting, you can get relatively close to, what it is you are shooting for, as long as you do a thorough analysis, you take into account external factors, right? Such as the cost of commodities or goods, right, fluctuating, right? This is how, the way we purchase fuel in the aviation system, or most companies purchase fuel or commodities, right? When you the oil you buying, the gas you're buying today, the price you're paying for it is not the price that the company paid for it per se. Okay, so the way oil or fuel is bought in the future. So you can say, all right, I need to buy oil, but I'm buying my oil or fuel for next year. But the prices are, it's 65 cents a gallon now. Okay. Do I think the prices are gonna go up next year, or do I think they're gonna go down? If I think they're gonna go up next year, I'm buying my oil now, I'm locking the price in. If I think they're gonna go down next year, I'm waiting, right? But you're taking a chance, because more than likely, things usually go up, they don't go down very often, right? And so the way fuel is bought in the future, or bought for the future, right? Commodities trading. I'm buying it now, I'm locking the price in now, so that next year when I get delivery of the oil or the fuel, I know exactly how much it costs me. And I won't have any surprises, right? Unless I exceed the amount of fuel that I've allocated to use, especially, which happens a lot, right? And if I exceed that, then I'm gonna pay the extra cost based on the market price for the day, right? Same thing with fruits and vegetables, right? Avocados, bananas, any commodity, bacon, right? Stuff like that, right? Those are all commodities. And those are all bought at the current price, but for future delivery, right? And so we want to make sure that we forecast properly. And the way we do that is by, again, having a baseline and pulling in any relevant data points that may give us an idea of where this price is gonna go, where the time is gonna be, right? If we know, hey, historically, this project takes 100 hours, takes 10 people, takes $1 million, that's gonna be our starting point, okay? Because it's over time, it's proven to be just that. And so we can use that to forecast. There's a bunch of different ways to forecast. You could do a naive forecast. You could build a model to help you forecast. All right. And this a model is just, everybody understands the equation for a line. Y equals mx plus b. Okay. That's a model. That is the universal model. Okay. My outcome is equal to some slope, some rise or run, times some variable, plus a constant, which is the b. Okay, so whatever that is, right? Think of it as like you have a job and it's commission based, right? But you have a base salary. So no matter what, you get $1,000 a month. But then that's not your salary. Your salary is dependent on how many cars you sell. Right? So I have $1,000 a month. And depending on how many cars I sell, I get $500 per car, right? So my salary, which is Y, is equal to M, which is the, $500 per car, times X, the number of cars I sold, plus my constant, which is B, all right? And that gives me my salary, right? And so that's used to help me forecast what my salary is gonna be, right? Same thing with your grades, right? Most people use a very simple forecasting method to get things done, and I would recommend that you do the same, not to get too complicated. I'm not gonna go over all these forecasting models because it doesn't really benefit you any, okay? All right, we got any questions? Complaints? Gripes, comments, nothing? Good? All right. All right, week 7 down. Next week is the last week, and that'll be that. You don't have to deal with me anymore to the next class. Okay? All right. So I will see you guys next week. Make sure, oh, you guys don't have anything to do at all, huh? You guys are good. Okay. Just make sure you get your LE in and you take the quiz and we should be good. Okay? I will see you guys next week.